Hey folks, this is Rabble Rouse and Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, with Tornado, it's Tony Pechanga.
Yeah. And Psychic Tom had you with a polished crystal ball. I had a few nicks in it after last weekend, but...
let me ask you a question on your crystal ball. Did your crystal ball predict a horrible job in timekeeping last week?
You have three. And everyone that's called, I was giving them like they were applying for the job, okay? And I'd say, well, let's see, okay, you're an ex-fighter, you're a fight panel head. Okay, now I'd like you to count to three, and then I'd have them do it in different language. Yeah, it's astonishing. It's absolutely, and I knew, Tony, you were watching it live, correct?
Yes.
Okay, now did you notice? It was approximately, I don't know exactly, but it's approximately about 30 seconds left in the round, and the clock was invisible. Okay?
Yes.
And I just thought, and I just got this sick feeling, not here we go again. And then I knew at some point it had to be the round, and you notice Jack was really scoring pretty good, and finally, I think about 30 seconds later, I was about blowing my throat out. Where's the bell? Wow. And I've never heard anything. I mean, there's been a few fans complain. One idiot was saying, well, you can't complain because Rivera had the same amount of time. But there's an ebb and flow in fights. Look at the heavyweight championship. The two rounds, how different they were. When Joshua was coming on, but then he was gassed and Usyk came back and sealed the deal. Don't tell me it was an equal minute. Cut idiot.
You know what? We're watching it here, and you're right. And I noticed the same thing too. They had the clock at the bottom, and it was like, the clock's gone. And then it's like, I said, oh my God! And like we looked at each other, we're like, God, this round seems really long. And then as soon as he said it, the announcer said it, like, that round seems really long. We learned years ago from Dr. Cox what he used to do with us a lot of times. He would want us to get an internal clock in our heads, and in college it was 2-minute rounds, and he would get his stopwatch, and he would make us do whatever. We'd either be hitting the bag, shadowboxing, jumping rope, sometimes even sparring, and he would change the timing of the round to see who could get closer in guessing how long we went. There were times we went 45 seconds. There were times we went 4 minutes and 45 seconds, because he wanted you to out. No, that was long. No, that was, and he wanted you to have that internal clock. So that's one of the things that I always really focus on is when I'm watching a fight is the time, because I'm just conditioned that way. And wow.
Yeah, when I was gonna do a lot of coaching and trying to get into my first MMA fight, I was gonna do this little thing in my corner, whether I did it for my own fighter or whether I did it for myself, my corner telling me this. I was just going to have him yell out 45 seconds into the fight and into the round rather than with 45 seconds left. And then I was just going to go nuts. Like 45 seconds in. With punches.
Yeah, when I work with people sometimes and I have them, train somebody and I have them doing stuff in the bag, and one of my rules is when you train with me, you should go bell to bell. I don't want you taking breaks. I don't want you holding the bag. I don't want if you're not gonna throw punches, you better be working somehow. Whether you're using footwork, head movement, a feint, something. You better look like you're in the process of doing something. So when I'm working with somebody, and they're training with me, I will give them, updates, and I'm like, listen, okay, you're a minute in. Okay, you got 45 seconds to go. That way I want to keep them where they're still working and not like, oh my God, how much longer do I got? Oh my God, I'm getting tired. No, that's one thing I don't want your mind focusing on. I want your mind focusing on throwing your combinations. You're using the right technique, not how much time's in the round. So I think the funny thing with Dr. Cox, when he would do that drill with us sometimes, the only thing that would suck is he had us doing something, and because where our gym was at the time was right by where the one locker room was. we were, have this little room, and a lot of times we were near the exit, so people would be coming in and out, and they're, hey, Dr. Dark, hi, how's it going? Hi, how you doing? And then you see somebody you know that you might not have seen in a while, maybe it was another professor, maybe it was a dean, maybe somebody, right? That person went over, Doc, how's the team going? Oh, this team's great, whatever. Next thing you know, you're doing an 8.5-minute round because he's not paying attention to the stop clock anymore. We'll be yelling, I'm like, time! I'm like, time. You went a little over that round. How much over? You did about 7.5 minutes. Wow. Yeah.
Well,
but no, I mean, like I said, that was.
I did not see any of that fight. I did watch the Usyk fight.
Bad for Rivera.
Where the round went long, but I read that it did probably cost. Was it Rivera the fight? It had the bad round, Rivera.
Yeah.
And I tell you, for the first time, I know we interviewed one of their color commentators from BKFC a few times there. But I tell you, for the first time watching a full BKFC event and paying for it, because I did pay their $5 a month subscription, boy, I thought they were very professional. They put their fights on very quickly, and didn't waste any time between fights. A lot of knockouts, actually.
It was an entertaining card there, too. But you notice how professional that was and how professional Glory was, and that's a fraction of the budget of the big show in Saudi Arabia, where they couldn't count to three. They couldn't get him, they've never given an excuse for that I've read, or an explanation. Have you guys heard anything about it?
No, I always thought that was automatic. I mean, I know that I've been to events, and they do have the bell right there next to the ring, and a guy rings it, but I always thought it was on a clock, and he's only there just to make sure that, it gets rung if something malfunctions, I figured all that would be automatic these days.
Unacceptable.
So,
see, I understand why you have to have a physical person doing it with a stopwatch, because the fact that you will have breaks in the round where you might have a person might go down, they might have the timekeeper's got to initiate with the count and all that. Also, you have it where, say, a person gets hit with a low blow, you got to stop the round. You give them the 5 minutes to recover. So I understand, why you have to have a physical person. Now, on the other side, all them years, and Rich, you were part of this as well. I can give you an example. On the college boxing circuit, the woman that was the timekeeper for a lot of my fights is Ken Cooper's mom. She's still alive. She doesn't do it anymore. But Mama Coop, we call her. Mama Coop was like, 60, 70-some years old. And, and I never remember her messing up ever. Little old lady with her stopwatch, and boom, rang the bell and did a great job. This is a person that you are on a huge stage, and you're messing up that bad. Like, what happened?
It's not that complicated.
No.
It's not that complex.
Were you checking Facebook? Were you tweeting, somebody? Were you sending a direct message to the girl with the big boobs that you saw on Facebook? You just read it? What were you doing?
I mean, there's been no consequence, no sanctioning, no explanation, and for all we know, the next big fight, that idiot is going to have the same job. And it was either incompetence or God forbid, something worse. And it's just sickening. I mean, it started.
Yeah, actually, it's politics, but we had a guy up here who just made headlines in the local paper. He was the moderator of the local elections, and he had no idea how the local elections worked, and there was like a compartment in the ballot box that he didn't even know existed. And they found all these ballots in there that never counted. So he got fired from his moderator position because he couldn't figure out the secret compartment. Ridiculous. Basic stuff, day one, you got to learn how the machines work, the boxes. Anyway.
It's it's like in any profession, especially in a profession like, boxing, that you take a lot of your referees out there now. You get some good ones, you get some not good ones, depends on, like, the state that licenses you. But, I'll take someone that I know personally, and he's not doing it anymore after he had a real bad bout with COVID a couple years ago, was Gary Rosado. I knew Gary, he refereed me in the amateur circuit. And, good guy, smart guy, and I remember him doing a lot of college fights and amateur fights. Then next thing you know, he's going to a card and he's working some undercard fights, 4-rounders, 6-rounders. Then when the main event would come on, he would step up and he would, or he'd step back, and the guys like Steve Smoker would step in. Next thing you know, then Gary would get a main event on a local card. Next thing you know, he's getting the world title fight because he learned his craft. Just like a fighter doesn't step into a world title fight, they got to start with the 4-rounders and the 6-rounders. Referees and judges are pretty much the same way. Unfortunately, you get a lot of them that don't get punished for poor performance. If you're a fighter and you're losing every fight, you're not getting a world title fight. No matter how bad the rankings are. But if you're a judge, Adelaide Byrd, for example, how many fights has she butchered? But she's in because of Robert Byrd, and because she's in the Byrd family. She keeps getting assignments.
She's not related to Marty Byrd from the show. Ozark. Marty Byrd.
It's more like, it's also like with that anymore. It's more like almost like
Anyway, we got to talk about the biggest upset of the week in combat sports. I'm going to say it. It's tied for the biggest upset. Mike Perry versus Michael Page. The BKFC not only was our former guest of ours on the commentary team, but just an incredible upset in the main event. And Michael Page was in his home arena. He's a London guy. And this was one of a couple events in London. Professional Fighters League was also in London. It was a little bit later start. But this one was in Wembley. It was a pretty decent stream. And I actually really liked one feature of it, and that was the knuckle up. Instead of saying box, when you go back to action like you do in a boxing match, they kept saying knuckle up. Kind of reminds you to get your hands up. Yeah, it's kind of interesting the way they did that. But it's a big difference between that and boxing. And number one, we talked to Bobby Gunn years ago. He told us kind of the secrets after him doing it probably longer than anyone else at that time. The body shots. A lot of body shots can do big damage, and it saves your hands. That was one of his big tip that he gave us. But the other thing is like, you have to pick your spots on the head when you're going for those headshots. And, a lot of these guys, they come from different disciplines. And James Lilly, I thought, had the best boxing on this card. He was a pure boxer guy, and he faced a guy named Tyler Goodjone, who all the clips showed did not ever put his hands in front of his face.
Yeah, that was a beatdown.
He was one of those guys
but it was competitive, though.
Yeah, so in the clips, it didn't look like he was that type of style that would ever use his hands to block. It was like, looked like he was just trying to do everything with head movement. So I was like really excited to see how this was going to work out with a boxer, but apparently somebody sent him the memo that he needed to keep his hands up against the boxer. But it did not help, because this guy got absolutely mauled. It was a decent fight. He had a couple good moments, but the cuts and the injuries are so different The facial lacerations
Well,
and stuff these guys get are like road.
Yeah, and you know, this has the feel to it of a spectacle feel like the early UFC days. Maybe Ken Shamrock was onto something. He said, you know, people like new stuff, and I think bare knuckles taking a while to take off, but maybe it will. And now Mike Perry's calling out John Jones. He's calling out Usyk.
Yeah. They're 2-minute rounds,
and,
so that's pretty cool. I mean, they're at first you think it's going by too quick, doesn't really give them a chance to get rhythm, but as the fights go on, you see all the knockouts happen, and you're like, wow, I guess it isn't too long. These guys have figured out how to do the job inside the distance. And it is, like, you see those cuts, and you realize, yeah, it is a lot of damage to sustain in a 2-minute period if it gets contentious between two fighters, you know. Even if just one is going off, you know, you can do a lot of damage without any elbows, believe it or not. There's some brutal cuts, especially Mike Perry.
Yeah, you had a good point, Rich.
He got a little bit.
Big Paul will never fight in bare knuckle, I don't think.
Who?
Well, when Mike Perry called out Jake Paul.
Oh yeah.
And you remember that? No, that's not going to happen in bare knuckle.
Maybe with the boxing gloves on though. He'll think he can win because of the reach. But we'll get to the main event in a minute. But James Lilly, let me finish that first. He actually got gassed in the last round, so he kind of slipped off in the last round. But the first 2 rounds, I mean, he used the boxing style just absolutely beautifully. He split the uprights. Tyler couldn't even, you know, do the orthodox defense once he figured out he needed to do that. And the head movement didn't help because he really kind of abandoned that. It looked like he wasn't really trying to move his head back. He was just trying to go with the hands-up defense. And I don't think I've ever seen an eye injury develop that quickly. I mean, like at the end of the first round, it was just blowing up. And then it just got worse and worse and worse. And they kept showing the close-ups of like just the starburst pattern of all those cuts. I was like, wow, this is brutal. But anyway, before that, we only had one fight go to knockout. That one went to decision, and it was James Lilly defeating Tyler Goodjone. Goodjone made a little bit of a fight of it in the third, like I said, but Lilly was just masterful. Probably the performance of the night. If they give a bonus for that, he got it. But anyway, before that, it was all knockouts except for some hick screwed it up. John Hick is his name. He got a victory over Ellis Shepard via unanimous decision. 48-47, 50-45, and 48-47. How does 2 guys see the fight 1 point and one guy sees it every round? I don't know about that. Anyway, there were 3 knockouts before that in a row to start the card. I didn't see every one of these fights, but I watched a lot of it. And it's pretty much, it was mostly about conditioning and it wasn't too many like guys just being out on their feet or, you know, going down hard. It was just, you know, they weren't ready for the brutality of it basically, and the huffing and puffing. You know, a lot of these guys were heavier. But Rob Cunningham defeated Brett May via TKO in the first fight. That was at doctor stoppage at the end of round 2. Franco Tenaglia defeated Chaz Simmons. A brutal knockout there at the end of round 2, 1 minute and 58 seconds into that one. And that was just, this guy looked like he was just trying to do a weird style, this Chaz Simons guy. I think he came from kickboxing or something. He looked like he knew what he was doing, but just it was just not helping him in any respect. And Tenaglia was just like a brutish type of guy. He just came in there and just clubbed him around and roughed him up, and then just closed in when the guy got hurt. So that was over pretty quickly into round 2. Dan Binney beat Conan Barbaru by knockout 35 seconds into round number 2 there. After the Hick fight, David Round beat Ashley Griffiths by TKO 40 seconds into round number 2. Weed Zoltaszek defeated Adam Harris, round 1, 1 minute and 59 seconds in, so just 1 second left in the fight. And you can't be saved by the bell. So that's another thing about the 2-minute rounds. You can never be saved by the bell in BKFCs. That was a little bit interesting. Danny Christie defeated Terry Brazier, also by TKO. That was all the way in round 3, 1 minute and 22 seconds into that one. And Jake Bostwick defeating Chris Fishgold by TKO in round number 2. That was an interesting one. That one made me think the tattoo game in the UFC is weak. This Bostwick guy, boy, he had tattoos everywhere. Like he was, you get the Yakuza starter kit going on. But he's all muscle bound, and I thought this Fishgold guy had some experience in the MMA and the UFC, and he was gonna do a lot better. But boy, he got very frustrated by that persistence of Bostwick and the strength of him. I mean, he just had the chin of steel. So he ended up weathering the storm there early and just taking Chris Fishgold to deep water, TKO'ing him second round, 1 minute 58 seconds into that one. And then Sam Shoemaker just looked out of shape, out of tune. Mick Terrell beat him with 1 second left in round 1. Pretty handily. Then the Lilly fight went to decision, and then the only other decision for the main event was Connor Tierney beating Joe Elmore. I didn't really watch a lot of that fight. It wasn't 2 and 2, and I think I was getting the other fight set up, both PFL, and I was trying to figure out what was going on with the boxing Usyk fight there. But the big one, obviously, Mike Perry and Michael Page. And not only was Michael Page home, he had an incredible reach advantage. Incredible. But, you know, all that cutesy stuff where you keep your hands at your waist, it might work when you can kick somebody, but it does not work when you're in the bare knuckle arena. And conditioning was a huge factor. Not unlike the UFC event the other night in Utah. But we'll get to that. This one, and there's no excuse. I mean, he is supposed to be a high-level fighter. He had to get permission to do this from Bellator, I'm sure. I mean, you know, they don't restrict fighters usually from doing other types of events. But he's going to have to get permission to do it again. They might say no after what happened here. Because everybody and their brother, I bet, expected him to win except Mike Perry's camp. And, you know, they have kind of like the Ultimate Fighter rules here, where if a fight is a tie, it goes another round. So this was a 5-round main event, and then there was a tie. So it went to a 6th round, and Michael Page was exhausted to the point of he really couldn't do anything in that final round. So, you know, Perry just wanted it more at that point. He was conditioned, whereas Michael Page was big time huffing and puffing, had a bloody lip. You know, he just looked defeated at the end of that fight. And he didn't seem to be putting effort into it. He just thought he thought it was a work almost the whole time. He was expecting it to be easier or something. It just definitely looked like a guy who had underprepared and thought that the same old style that worked for him in most of his MMA fights was going to work for him in a completely different discipline, and it did not.
Well, yeah, there was.
Give me 1 minute. I will be right back. I got to go do a quick lifting routine.
Okay.
You know, the kicks, because if you notice, Page was starting to get into a rhythm, but without those kicks, that meant a huge difference.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he's got that karate style where he's at he's completely at an angle, not squared up at all. And yeah, that could work if your kicking attack is really solid. but that was out of the equation. So I think he's going to have to make a few adjustments if he stays with bare knuckle.
Yeah, and Perry looked better than ever. I mean, he took a lot of damage. Talk about cuts. He got some mean-looking cuts, but none of them were, leading directly into his eyes. So he looked out. They let it continue, and he really didn't figure out how to beat Page until the late rounds when he noticed that Page was getting tired, and he was the fresher fighter going into the final round, of course, where everything mattered. But I thought he was going to lose by decision, and Page was going to escape with a narrow victory. But nope, judges had it differently, and boy, that was a round. That was a heck of a round. And Page just literally lost it by conditioning, I think. Conditioning and style obviously got him in that position where he had to defend in this final round. But, I mean, just a little bit of defense would have changed that fight for him. Just a little bit. One hand up, Anything different, a little bit differently could have changed that outcome because, Perry is just one of those guys. He reminds me a little of Rocky Marciano, the way he fights in bare knuckle. He just goes in there in a little bit of a crouch and sometimes doesn't even look and just throws. Reckless abandon.
I think he's, as he said in the interview, though, I do think he's found his niche.
Yeah, he's born for this.
It just really seems to fit him.
So I'm excited to see what he does next. I got my subscription, supporting our buddy there, the Mountain Dew guy. He brought his Mountain Dew all the way over there to the UK to do his photo thing. Sean Wheelock, what a guy. It's kind of funny when he was in the between event shots and they actually showed his face. He just looked so intent, almost like he was trying not to blink. He's looking right at the camera. This guy's focused. A lot of Mountain Dew. Anyway, so I don't know what's going on next with them, but I'm gonna keep up with that. And talking about them a little bit more.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was. You got to admit, it was a very entertaining card. My problem was I had three different cards on, but everything I could catch was well worth it.
Right. And the PFL was not much of a surprise. That happened shortly after the bare knuckle. Kayla Harrison in the main event, beating her opponent pretty handily in just 3 minutes and 17 seconds. Martina Jindrova. She's going to be fighting a little bit tougher lady, Larissa Pacheco, next. But Kayla Harrison is 15-0, and she's showing no signs of stopping her dominance. This one was also in London at the Copper Box Arena. Co-main event was a featherweight match. Brendan Loughnane moving on against Chris Wade by unanimous decision. And Pacheco punched her ticket to the finals against Helena Kolesnik with a knockout. So, could be jiu-jitsu versus striking in that Harrison fight. But she got the knockout 2 minutes and 9 seconds into the first against Helena Kolesnik. And then we had the Bubba fight. Bubba Jenkins beating Ryoji Kudo by a rear naked choke, 1 minute and 49 seconds into that fight. And then Dakota Ditcheva. How about that for a name? Ditcheva beating Hasna Gaber by TKO. Submission due to a knee to the body. That was a brutal one. I just tuned in to see that happen, and I was wondering what the hell happened there. And you watch the replay in slow motion, and the girl waves off the fight right after a real bad strike to the body with the knee. And all I could think of is she must have felt something crack or break, and she was done. She was in a grappling exchange there against the fence, and it was boom, fight was over. 58 seconds in. So, did you go? I think she was an underdog. She was crazy. Simeon Powell at light heavyweight beating João Paulo Fagundes by TKO from leg kicks. 1 minute 56 seconds into round number 2. UFC veteran there, Marcin Held, beating Miles Price by guillotine choke in the second round. 2 minutes and 37 seconds in. We had Abraham winning a unanimous decision. Abraham Badley over Louis Sutherland. Magnus Onyeka Iverson at welterweight beating Tayo Odunjo by TKO. 4 minutes and 36 seconds into their fight. And they were on bare knuckle time here, I guess, in Ali Taleb's bantamweight fight. He got the job done in just 1 minute and 58 seconds. A guillotine choke over Darius Mafi. And Stuart Austin won a unanimous decision over Sofiane Bukachu. Alexander Chizovs at lightweight beating Omar Hussein Abu Farah by rear naked choke submission. 4 minutes and 12 seconds into round number 2. And the first fight was Benazwi Ruiz beating Rafael Uchegbu by unanimous decision. So, there's actually no UFC this weekend, right? Am I right? For once.
I haven't heard anything. I'm just still hungover from last weekend. So
that was the other biggest upset in combat sports we have to talk about. We'll get to that, but I'm trying to go in chronological order of when all these fights happened on Saturday. So I guess we got to go to Joshua versus Usyk next if we got Tony back. Skip it and go right to UFC 278. Oh, we got Tony now. It's lifting. It's going to get huge. Alright, so Oozman versus Edwards. This one was from Utah. I did not realize that Utah was such a mountain area, elevation area. I guess that's what was contributing.
Yeah, it had a big effect.
Gassing out, but Kamaru Usman didn't have that problem with gassing out. He had that problem of blacking out. Unfortunately for him.
Yeah, that was brutal.
By vicious head kick in the 5th round. Inside a minute left, and you know, it was one of those situations where I think almost every single person watching just felt bad for Leon Edwards. Whether you were a fan of Kamaru or not, you had to feel like, oh, geez, you know, this guy has no shot. You know, his corner's yelling at him. He doesn't even want to look his trainers in the eye. You know, even the commentators were saying it. Like, he just does not want to make eye contact with his own people. He's that ashamed of his performance. And then, like, 5 minutes later, he goes out there and freaking levels the guy. And I saw one clip of his corner talking to him between rounds and like, trying to hype him up, Leon. And, you know, telling him he's capable of better and, you know, what are you doing? Go out there and get this. And finally he did. And, boy, that frustration turned to joy real quick. Real quick. But,
you know, Edwards had a very telling statement, though, after the fight. Like, when he said, I'm a true mixed martial artist. Yeah. I'm not just a boxer, a wrestler. And I think part of it, too, may have been Oozman talking about making the jump to light heavyweight. Yeah. Was he getting ahead of things? Because it just seems like, go back to ancient Greece when they had that phrase, hubris. When you start to think you're more than you really are. Right. I'm not saying that's what happened. I mean, it just could have been a freak accident. But sometimes when someone's considered unbeatable,
well, not only was he considered unbeatable,
Tyson, we've seen it with Mark Coleman.
Everybody was talking about how he is the greatest of all time now. Like, he is the best ever done it. Putting all that hype on his shoulders at the same time that Edwards is going in here in a rematch of a fight he already lost. And, you know, it's just like nobody gave him a shot. And I've joked because there's a picture going around of Joe Rogan, Daniel Cormier, and John Anik all freaking out at the moment of the kick. But John Anik is like happy about it. Joe Rogan is absolutely shocked. And then Daniel Cormier looks concerned about Rogan because he's so shocked in the picture. And I'm thinking, well, maybe John Anik made a bet for Leon to get the knockout. I don't know, but he is so happy about it. Like, he was thrilled. It was interesting. But yeah, that moment obviously changed a lot of lives. I don't know how many people bet on Edwards, but boy, you know, that was a heck of a fight to have as a main event, and to have it go that way when everybody was just piling on the praise for Kamaru Usman and not giving Edwards any shot. And the guy's nickname is Rocky.
Rocky.
Rocky. So yeah, they actually played a little bit of the Rocky theme song for him at the end.
I'm back, by the way.
Oh, there he is.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, Rocky. Leon Rocky Edwards, Tony. How about that for the guy that won the biggest upset in the UFC in a long, long time?
Fitting, isn't it? You know, the underdog with the name Rocky, right?
Yeah. Unreal. So he knocked him out with a head kick, and I've never seen a knockout like that. I mean, I've seen a lot of knockouts. We've been covering this for, long time.
Well, you know, there was a big threat. There was a big threat on the underground about that. Go back to Pete Williams and Coleman. I mean, it has happened.
I mean, he was just eyes wide open,
unexpected,
stiff as a board, just boom, out. And like, you know, it wasn't a flash thing.
And you know, Rich, I think part of the problem of trying to defend against that, you don't see it in the gym that much.
Yeah, actually,
very few pro fighters are that good with it, setting it up.
The fight that it reminded me most of was Crow Cop versus Gonzaga. When Gonzaga hit Crow Cop with the hit. But I don't know. This one seemed worse because it was just quicker. Like, he was just on the ground and done. And the eyes, like, his eyes just turned people went completely black. It looked like, I was just like, wow. I don't think I've ever seen anybody just that out. He was off in a different world. He got put in another dimension. Anyway, talking about another dimension, Luke Rockhold.
Rockhold, Costco was calling him. Did you catch that? Rockhold.
No.
You know, the Brazilian Portuguese pronunciation. Rockhold.
But Pablo Costa, you know, did not look that good in his outing against Izzy. But, boy, he looked pretty good here. He tolerated a lot of bullshit from Luke Rockhold. There was an on-the-belt kick that went as a low blow, and Rockhold got some time off for. And talk about conditioning. This was the biggest fight for conditioning. Luke Rockhold, if he was in better physical shape, might have won this fight. But his absolute failure to freaking be able to recover from a slugfest, and like the whole entire fight, he was on the razor's edge of just collapsing from exhaustion. Except for maybe like a little bit of the first.
So it should have been sea level. Like remember with Kane, sea level fight.
So I mean, yeah, you're coming back after a long layoff, but you know, I understand you're a veteran, you want a big name, but I don't understand why they put him against a guy like Paulo Costa if they wanted to keep him around. If they really wanted him to retire, yeah, I get it. But like if he picked this for some reason, thinking he was better than Paulo, I mean, yeah, maybe 5 years ago, but He even said it. I'm fucking old, he said after the fight. I bet on him. Not bet, but I put him in a lineup, thinking that there could be an upset there. But Paulo did what he was supposed to do. It wasn't that impressive, but he did all the basics right, and he just weathered all the bullshit with Rockhold. But the craziest thing that you would expect him to go a little nuts over didn't even faze him. At the very end of the fight, Luke Rockhold, with his nose busted open and bleeding from 72 different wounds to the face, decides to fucking wipe his blood all over Costa's face, like he's kissing him almost with the blood, just like wiping it, grabbing his head and just wiping his head all over Costa. It's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen.
That was classless.
And
I never seen anything like it before.
And I didn't see him take too much grief over it, which was surprising. It's like, why? What is it? That is so disrespectful. And that is your last fight as a professional. Yeah. You retire after that. Like, that's the grossest moment in combat sports right there that I've seen.
Yeah.
Other than, I think Robbie Lawler ate some guy's blood and licked it off his fucking hands one time. But yeah, that's unreal. It's just like you said, classless is the word for it. So that one was kind of ugly. And then Merab Dvalishvili got a unanimous decision over Jose Aldo. That was just incredible wrestling, pressure. Aldo looked good, he looked in shape, he looked ready for it, but his styles, clashing styles, just did not work out for him here. He had no answer for that kind of wrestling. He was, basically always defending the takedown, and it took away from all his brilliance of the striking, and he could not get range, he could not get the right distance, so it was kind of a hopeless effort for him. He made a game of it, and made it interesting. Just you can tell the frustration was the biggest thing. He just could not get past that. Always defending the takedown. And Lucy Pudilova beating Yanan Wu from a TKO elbows, 4 minutes and 4 seconds into the second round. That was not the one I would have picked to go by knockout. Not too well on the FanDuel. Tyson Pedro, though, I went with the guy named Tyson. Of course, that was my best card. The 1 minute. They had him in MVP slot too. He got the TKO like he was supposed to over Harry Hunsucker. And boy, Hunsucker had a great story, drugs and alcohol, and straightening himself out with the fight game. But he was heavily the underdog and proved it. TKO very quickly, 1 minute and 5 seconds. Marcin Tybura at heavyweight had a little bit tougher fight against Alexander Romanov, who was undefeated. But Gas Tank was big. Tybura came back in the later rounds. Romanov just destroyed him in the first. Did a lot of good wrestling, and but his cardio was gone after that, and so he lost by majority decision. That cost me on the Tyson Pedro card. Then we had Jared Gordon beating Leonardo Santos. I didn't pick any guy in that fight. That was a unanimous decision. Sean Woodson, again, I had to pick the fight that got the draw. Sean Woodson and Luis Saldana. I did not pick Saldana on any cards. No, I did have Saldana on a couple cards. But Woodson I had on one that I needed him to win, and he drew. I had the draw. It's a split draw. But the one I could have never predicted was Ang Lusa beating A.J. Fletcher by unanimous decision. And you got to get stoppages to win, but win the big money. But I had Fletcher, where I needed to have Lusa there. Amir Albazi, I did pick him. He won by rear naked choke, 4 minutes and 34 seconds into the fight over Francisco Figueiredo, so that was a big win. Just not combined with the other big wins. Quilling Aori, I did have. beating Jay Perrin, but that was a decision. And then the first fight of the night, I totally blew it because I went for Daniel Lacerda. He was a very cheap fighter. I think I had him on every single card. That's what really screwed me up because I just committed to him. Thought he was going to get the upset, but Victor Altamirano started off tonight with a TKO, 3 minutes and 39 seconds into that fight. And, that was the guy you had to have. That and the one female fight there, which I did not pick. Alright, so we got to talk about big boys. Usyk and Joshua. Probably the most news-making part of that entire fight was the speech afterwards from Joshua.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Snooze fest.
You know what? I actually, the other day, when we were all, like, messaging and emailing each other during the fight, I really enjoyed that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was like we were in, like, our little chat room almost, like back in, like, the AOL chat room days. But, you know, going into the fight, one of the things that I had wrong, and Joshua proved me wrong on this, was he was a little mentally tougher than I gave him credit for. Not mentally tough enough to beat Usyk, but
he looked
I was
good
figured going into this fight because that last fight, you know,
he looked really good.
Well, early he was a little bit tentative early, and he let Usyk win some of the earlier rounds that he could have won. But then, as later in the fight, he actually started using a body attack, and there was a few times that I'm like, he's got Usyk hurt a little bit here. After the first fight, like Usyk really, for being a smaller guy, really roughed him up a little bit, and I was figuring Joshua was going to come into this fight especially tentative. When he had that loss to Andy Ruiz, first when he had that fight against Klitschko, that he won, but he had to get off the canvas to do it, you could see that it took a lot of his killer instinct away. What happened to Vladimir Klitschko when he had those knockout losses to Corey Sanders and Layman Brewster, where he got extremely tentative in the ring, where it was like he was afraid of his chin and he was afraid of his conditioning. And I think that was happening to Joshua as well. After he had, you know, that win over Klitschko where he was hurt and he had to get up and gut it out, he became extremely tentative. And he gets knocked down 4 times and gets stopped and loses his title. And when they fought the rematch, it was more of Ruiz giving him the title back instead of him taking it. He boxed and played, you know, safety first, and Ruiz just came in, you know, grossly out of shape where he couldn't do anything. The first fight with Usyk basically took it to him. He's a mentally strong fighter. He's a physically strong fighter. And he's a well-schooled fighter. I mean, you have a couple of Olympic gold medalists here. So in this fight, Usyk won some of the earlier rounds by countering over the top of Joshua's jab, almost like with a southpaw check hook. And then he landed a few left hands, and I'm like, okay, Usyk's winning this fight, but he's not, you know, dominating this fight. Then Joshua, like, started coming with them body shots. I'm like, man, he's nuts here. And I think it was like the 8th or 9th, where I thought he really had Usyk in trouble. I mean, yeah. I'm like,
there's one round where he just stepped on the gas, and then he just totally bombed the next round. Like
exactly,
almost like
exactly
he was
right,
getting paid to take the dive after that. It was just ridiculous.
You're 100% right on that, because it was like that one round that I think it was the 8th or the 9th. I can't remember exactly, but he landed some good shots. I'm like, shit. I'm like, he landed some shots. I'm like, Usyk looks like he's definitely hurt. And then the next round, I remember saying to my dad, I was like, you would have thought it was the exact role reversal in that round, the way they're fighting now. Like, Usyk's like taking him to the woodshed right now, and I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if he stops Joshua the way he was hitting him that round. I'm like, you would have thought Joshua was the one in trouble the previous round. I was shocked that it was a split. I really was. I had it 8 rounds to 4. A couple of the early rounds were close, but I gave them to Usyk. But they were close, but I felt that he definitely clearly won them. And then, the other rounds, the rounds that I gave to Joshua, I felt that he clearly won. The rounds I gave to Usyk, I felt he clearly won. I had it 8 rounds to 4, and I was shocked that somebody Joshua 7 rounds.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll have to watch it closer. I mean, if I really wanted to watch it again, if I was going to score it. But from what I read, from what I saw, Usyk just was getting people more fired up towards the end. He had a little bit more energy in the championship rounds. He was slicker. The one thing I noticed, though, is that he just did not seem to be connecting with that left hand like he did in the first fight. Just couldn't find it. Just could not find the power in it. Like, it just basically was outboxing Joshua instead of threatening a knockout for the most part. And he didn't have to do that in the last fight. He ended up hurting Joshua a few times. Really stopping him in his tracks with that left. So I don't know if that's a project of his changing trainers, Joshua, or what, but the most puzzling thing about the whole fight was the speech afterwards.
Oh my God, yeah.
Obviously, there's a little jealousy in there. You can sense that by the way he was like, well, I'm sorry I didn't start when I was 5 years old. Is basically what he was saying. And then he also was trying to be sensitive to the idea that this was a story, but he kind of had that chip on his shoulder attitude about it, where he's trying to praise the guy at the same time he's like using it as an excuse of why he lost the decision, because he's trying to hint to the media, at least I think subconsciously, that this is bullshit. This guy won because he's a war hero. But he's also trying not to be a dick and point out that the guy is a war hero.
And that's a load of shit. He won because he outboxed him and he outpunched him. That's
exactly.
Won. And that's, here's the thing. It's like, when you hear any guys that fought Floyd Mayweather bitch that they lost the fight because Mayweather has been doing it basically since he was in diapers? No. They might have bitched and said, oh, he ran too much. They might have bitched and said, oh, he did whatever. But nobody, I don't remember everybody saying, well, it's not fair because he's been doing this since he's in diapers because his father and his uncle were world champions. No, nobody ever said that. Then you turn around and you get other guys that were, pedigree fighters, that were good fighters. Does anybody say about Mike Tyson? Well, it's not fair because he should have been in jail. He shouldn't have been taken in by this old Italian guy. That's not fair. On the other hand, it's hard, not a good comparison because he was undefeated, but, Rocky Marciano.
Oh, he trashed him
when he was in his
too.
20s.
Did you hear that, Tony? Did Joshua mentioned Rocky?
What's that?
Joshua mentioned Rocky. Did you hear that?
No, I missed that. I missed part of that interview.
No, the speech. The speech, he mentioned Rocky Marciano.
Yeah.
He dismissed him, basically, as one of the great heavyweights, because he was talking about the
what
other
did he
heavyweights. Say? I don't know. I'm going to have to fucking find it now.
Yeah, I'm going to have to find it, too. Because I saw when he threw the belts and all that, and it was like I was on my way out the door, so, I mean, as soon as the decision was read, I kind of had to go.
That would really be able to rip into it when he left. But yeah, it was kind of like he did say he was sorry, because that's his. That's in Europe, It's obviously it's Saudi Arabia.
Here's the thing,
Dubai.
Rich, you were a fighter. I was a fighter. There were times like you had fights that you felt you won. I never took it to the point where I felt like I should disrespect my opponent.
Yeah.
Now.
And Usyk.
Hey, I've had things that I've had the referees.
Not upset, but he looked very awkward. look, he felt awkward in that situation, and you shouldn't take
you know
away
what?
the guy's thunder. Like
It's how you make yourself look towards. Hey, we've had fights, you know, where maybe things didn't go in our favor. You had a fight, you said, against Jesse Bond, where all he did was clinch him. I was in the same boat. You know, you had a fight with Michael Jordan, where he, you know, fought you on the inside, and you know, maybe he neutralized you. You know, and maybe you felt you won that fight. I don't know, but you know, at no point did you do anything disrespectful like that. Did you want to win? Absolutely. You know, did you want to fight for the national title? Absolutely. You know, I had a fight with Jesse Bond that I definitely felt that I was wronged in the decision, and I shook his hand. I shook his coach's hand. The one judge came up to me a day later, and I said, you know, get away from me. I don't want to talk to you. I didn't threaten to beat him off. I mean, I wanted to, but I didn't. I mean, there were times, like, I've had judges, like, go against me, and they're like, well, the reason I went against you, and I'm like, that's bullshit. You know, that's a bullshit reason.
Right.
You know, but I've never taken it out on my opponent,
right,
where I disrespected him in his moment.
Speech. I just queued it up.
Look, if you knew my story, you would understand the passion. I ain't no amateur boxer from 5 years old. That was an elite prospect from a youth, bro. I was going to jail. I see some hype little youths in Reading jail. I got bail and I started training my ass off. Because if I got sentenced, I wanted to be able to fight. I bust my case. My cousin Benga, where's he at? G14, raise your hand. I'm stealing this Usyk, sorry. But it's because the passion we put into this. Guys, I'm telling you, this guy, to beat me tonight, maybe I could have done better, but it shows the levels of hard work he must have put in. So please give him a round of applause as our heavyweight champion of the world. Woo! I'm not a 12-round fighter. Look at me. I'm a new breed of heavyweights. All them heavyweights, Mike Tyson, Sonny Liston, Jack Dempsey. Oh, yeah, you don't throw combinations like Rocky Marciano. Because I ain't 14 stone, that's why. I'm 18 stone, I'm heavy. It's hard work. This guy here is a phenomenal talent. We're going to cheer for him 3 times. Well, how many belts you got now, bro? 5. Hip, hip. Hip, hip. Hip, hip. Hip, hip. Hip, hip. And as I said, I was studying Ukraine, and all the champions that have come from your amazing country, but I've never been there. But at the same time, what's happening there is, I don't know what's happening, but it's not nice at the end of the day. I've seen it with Lomachenko in his second fight against Orlando. There was unrest in Ukraine, right or wrong. There was issues in Ukraine in your second fight. There was civil war. Vitaly Klitschko, when he faced Danny Williams, civil unrest. Usyk as the champion, please raise your hand. Under them circumstances, he managed to become champion. Champ, champ! Champ, champ! Champ, champ! And I just want to say, Bismillah.
Whatever.
Yeah, that made no sense.
Yeah, it's just weird. It was weird. It's like the awkwardness of Usyk during the whole thing. On top of it, was just like even weirder.
While you sleep.
Alright, let's not talk about
if you struggle to
YouTube
lose weight,
commercial shit. Alright, get out of here. Alright. So yeah, that was odd, and the whole thing where he's like trying to show that he knows history, like asking people questions and shit. That was the most awkward part. It's like, I mean, do you know what you're talking about, or are you just bullshit at this point? It's weird.
And that was a fight where it wasn't like where one fighter was taking a tremendous amount of punishment, but you never know. You know, especially when you're in there with heavyweights, where a punch in there may have done a little bit more damage than it appeared. After an outburst like that, I would have him scanned for concussion.
Yeah.
Good point. because, I mean, it didn't look like anything happened, but, he took some shots in there, and you are dealing with heavyweight. And Usyk's not a devastating puncher, but, I mean, he's a physical fighter, and he's got heavy hands. Where one of them shots on there, especially in that, those late rounds, that 9th or 10th round, where it looked like Joshua was pretty stunned, there could have been more than it looked.
Right. On the undercard, we also had one that we were talking about, Philippe Hergovich versus Lee Zhang, and I tuned in just in time to see Zhang fall on his ass after almost doing a forced split. I think it was like the 10th round.
Oh my God, I know.
To 12th, and then Philippe just kind of piled it on.
I thought he blew out his ACL.
Yeah, I definitely think he was kind of embarrassed by it. He just didn't look in the best of shape, period. I mean, he's a big boy. But Hergovich is a pretty big guy, too. I mean, they're not like, Adonis type guys. They're not in there about physique. They're in there about power. And Hergovich got the decision, unanimous decision.
I thought Zhang.
But I didn't see the earlier rounds, so I couldn't really talk about it.
I watched it, and it was like, okay, the first round, Hergovich was doing good, and then Zhang landed a punch. It looked like it was a pretty innocent punch, almost like he cuffed him, but Hergovich went down, right?
Yep.
And it's like they called it a knockdown. At first, I was like, nah, he pulled him down, or but then when you watch it, I'm like, yeah, he hit him with the open part of his hand, right on the top of the head. But no, it was a legit knockdown, and he was a little bit more hurt than he seemed, or a little bit more hurt than you would have expected. And then so it was a 10-8 round, and then they were kind of going back and forth. And then what I didn't like about Hergovich was his body language, and especially a lot of those middle rounds, it was like you were expecting him to be the one that would wear Zhang out. Zhang had that fight against Jerry Forrest where he was like totally exhausted, and Hergovich was the younger guy. Zhang's almost 40 years old. You were expecting the younger guy's work rate to take over mid to late round. I didn't see that happening. In fact, there was a lot of rounds where Hergovich was, first of all, he was moving the wrong way. He was moving to his right into Zhang's powerful left hand. But it was almost like he was like looking away at his opponent. He was like looking at the ground, and that was another one that actually concerned me, because I was like, is this guy? It was a fight that I was watching as it went on, and even though I didn't see him taking a whole lot of like sustained punishment, when he was doing that and he was like, moving and looking down, that worried me, because that seemed like a fighter whose brain was like going through some issues, and I was worried that could lead to where next thing you know he was going to collapse in the corner and they're carrying him out of the stretcher. It was just something that his body language really disturbed me.
Yeah.
Then they kind of went back and forth like the mid and the late rounds. I thought Zhang won. I thought Zhang won about 7 of the 10 rounds. Plus there was a knockdown in there. One judge had it 8 rounds, or it was a 12-round fight. One judge had it 8 rounds before for Hergovich, and I was like, are you kidding me? Because it was 115, 112, minus the point for the knockdown. It would have been 116, 112. How? Where? Where the hell was that? I don't see it. I had Zhang winning 115, 113.
Yeah. So then we had Callum Smith, also on the undercard, getting a victory. That's on the page. Okay, Callum Smith, 28-1, got the KO over Matthew Balderleek. Right, light heavyweight in the 4th round. Balderleek was down twice, and that was it.
That was a hell of a knockout.
I did not see any of that one. Badu Jack, we talked about that, the Rivera fight. Rivera was undefeated going in, I did not know that. And it was a split decision win for Jack, who was looking at his 3rd loss in a row, if he took that loss, but did not. craziness. For that, not before that, but same night we had Emanuel Navarrete beating Eduardo Baez in Pechanga Arena. I don't know which service that card was on, but Showtime and ESPN I did not watch because I was too wrapped up with the UFC and all that shit. But I taped it, meaning to watch it, just never got down to watching it. Anyway. So Navarrete got the win in round 6, knockout over Eduardo Baez. He improves to 36-1. Baez 21-3 with 2 draws. That was for the WBO World Featherweight title. Baez was down and counted out from a body punch in round number 6. Says the notes.
That was a good body punch, though. You know, he landed that shot, and you're like. And you saw him land the first shot. It's like, oh, that was a good body shot. And then he landed that second one, and it was like, yeah, that's definitely gonna put him out. It's gonna end the night.
And Giovanni Santillan before that got magic win number 30 by unanimous decision in a 10-rounder against Julio Luna Avila, who was also undefeated going into that one, but did not get win number 20. He got loss number 1. To go with 19 wins and 2 draws. And cut open the forehead and right eye of Santillan, but was from accidental headbutts, so it wasn't from punches. But boy, Santillan obviously weathered that storm pretty well. Another somebody's always got to go fight. Before that, Lendolfo Delgado, proving to 16-0 by unanimous decision against Omar Alejandro Aguilar in an 8-rounder. Went the distance. Aguilar was looking for win number 25. Instead, he goes to 24-1. And we had Alberto Puello, 20-0 going in, winning a split decision over Baltirzon Akhmedov, who was 9-1. That was for the WBA World Super Lightweight title. That was vacant. That was from Seminole Hard Rock and Casino, Hollywood. That was the Lipinets fight, too. And Omar Figueroa Jr. took loss number 3 in that one, 28-3-1. He was down in round 2 and lost in the 8th. RTD. What does that mean again? RTD? Referee terminates or something?
Retire. It means basically that they stop, ended on the stool.
So Lipinets improves to 17-2 with 1 draw. Still has the silver super lightweight title, WBC. And before that, it was Roger Gutierrez falling to Hector Luis Garcia, who stays undefeated. Garcia moves to 16-0. That was for the WBA World Super Featherweight title. Gutierrez is now 26-4-1. And Brandon Lee got win number 26. No losses, no draws. Got that by unanimous decision, even though he got put down for a count in round number 3 by Will Madera. In that fight, Will was 17-1 going in with 3 draws. Now he is 17-2. That's it for Saturday's stuff from last week. So now we got to go to this week. And the big one this week is a former FBI agent, Comey. No, wrong guy. Richard Comey. From this fight's from Tulsa, Oklahoma, at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. Jose the Sniper Pedraza, 29-4, against Richard Comey, Commey. He is 30-4. So it's number 17 at the weight against number 22, super lightweight. And really, that's all they're showing for big fights for this weekend. They go right to September 3rd.
Here's much going on this weekend.
Oh, Let me see if there's 2-star fights we can talk about on this. Oh, there we go. Okay, now we got a list. All right. Well, we got one of our former guests. I believe we've spoken to Dennis Douglin at some point. 23-8, fighting Cecil McCullough, who is 23-5. He's ranked number 86 in the world at middleweight. Carlo Torres on that card. Well, that's not really worth mentioning. Let's see what else. Wow, there's really not a lot going on. We got better fights on Friday this week. Got Murat Gassiev in action in Belgrade, Serbia. He's 28-1, fighting Carlos Welch. I've never seen that name spelled like that. Carlouse, like Laos. Carlos Welch. He is 21-2-1. This one is for the Eurasian Boxing Parliament heavyweight title. Over in Belgrade. Craziness. And the only other fight really that's decent on paper at least is super welterweights in Stockton, California. Damian Sosa, he is 20-1, fighting Ronald Cruz, who is 18-1 in super welterweight. And that's it until Tuesday in Tokyo. Big fights, and those aren't even that great. Wow. Till next week on that, I guess. And there's really no MMA this weekend either. PFL doesn't happen. Their finals doesn't happen until November. Bellator doesn't have another event until September, and so is UFC. UFC finally has stopped their streak of fights every weekend to take a freaking break. It's almost like this was supposed to be NFL opening week or something. Oh, that's next week, right? Not a lot of fights. So we're going to be all news next week, I guess. We're going to have to just do some news hunting. Get a guest.
I know. It's like, I was like looking, I was like, I got to find some mischief to get into this weekend. Like all my buddies are down in Virginia. I think I went to a baseball game last night. I went to a minor league game. Philly's got this young prospect. He's in their AAA team right now. And so I went to see him last night. I think he's going to be pretty good. Bryce Harper.
Yeah, there you go. Nice.
Well, he's been out for 2 months, and he started his rehab assignment this week up at the one minor league stadium. So that place was packed last night. So, you know,
I saw that. What is this? What is this? Oh shucks bullshit that you keep doing at all these games?
Oh, what do you mean? What's this bullshit?
I've never heard of such a thing. What is this? What is this gimmick?
What, the all shucks?
Yeah, what is that? I've never heard of it. What do they do to the corn? Yeah, what do they do to it?
Yeah.
Explain it to us.
Well, here's what's funny. You guys will get a kick out of this. They roast the corn, they put it on a stick, right? And then they put it, they dip it, sticks to it, right? Or they spray it, or however they do it. Then they put the seasoning on it, and then Parmesan cheese. So it makes this, like, amazing, flavor to the corn. Now, a couple years ago, 2020, there were no games because of COVID. No games meant no all shucks. And I said, all shucks. I said, this is the bullshit. I went on their website, jars of the seasoning. So whenever I make corn at the house now, I put the seasoning on.
Wow.
And it's good, but it's not as good as it has it there. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they spray it with the butter. Maybe the butter's laced with cocaine. I don't know. And then they put the seasoning on, and then they, they put the Parmesan cheese on it, and that's all I eat when I go there. Someone's like, oh, what'd you have last night? Oh, sometimes I had a hamburger, I had a pretzel, I had pizza, I had whatever. I'm like, I had, what else? Well, I was going to get 3, but, you know, I didn't. Yeah, no, it's great. It's amazing.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out.
And, of course, I go there. You know, I go there, and I walk up to the stand, and, you know, like, I haven't seen you all season, Tony. I'm like, and I always make a joke about it. I'm like, you guys know me? Like, yeah. I'm waiting for you. I'm like, really? It makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. That people recognize me.
Yeah.
It was funny.
Well, now they know that if they're at a game and they want to see you, that the first place they need to go to when they go in is Shucks, because that's where you go to.
That's in Lehigh Valley, yes. Exactly. And the thing is, whenever I go, I don't go to seats. So I always stand in the right field corner, which is only about 20 yards away from the All-Shucks game.
Yeah.
I'm at a game last year at this minor league stadium, Lehigh Valley, and I'm standing there, you know, whatever. And this guy comes over to me, and he's like, "Hey, Tony, I don't know this guy, right?" He goes, "You don't know me." Obviously, I don't. He goes, "But I'm a Facebook friend with actually a guy that we all know, Iceman John Scully." And he goes, "And I see you on John Scully's Facebook page. That's how I knew it was you." And he goes, "And I've seen you, whatever." So we're talking, and he goes, "I'm going to take a picture with you right now, and I'm going to send it to John." And so we take and he goes, takes a picture of me and him together, and he goes, "Hey, John, this guy says he knows you." and Iceman looks at it, he goes, "I don't recognize him." So then I give this guy Rob, I said, "Rob, here's my phone. Take a picture of me." And he takes a picture of me, and I send it to John. I'm like, "You don't know me?" He's, "Oh, shit, that's you?" You know, so.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to remind him who you are when we interview him next.
Yeah.
He's actually been getting some good Sugar Ray Leonard stuff to auction off.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, autograph shit, and unfortunately, I don't think he gave people enough time to bid on it. I think he could have got a lot more, but still has not touched my record of $2,500 as far as I know, unless I missed anything. But I think he got $1,700 for one thing. The first thing he had autographed by both Sugar Ray and Tommy. But yeah, I don't know. Just could. I think a lot of people were commenting. That's why I say it. That oh man, I wish I'd known about this. Like, because by the time I checked on it, it was over. So I don't know if he did like a 6-hour auction or what. But yeah, that deserved a few days to get out to the people. But good stuff he's doing. He's sending checks out to people. He's doing reunions. He's actually having a reunion in Boston. Which I'm supposed to be in the Boston area the weekend of the 17th. I think it's the 17th. He's having an amateur boxing reunion in Boston. So I don't know whether I'm going to be able to go to both events or not, but I also have my alumni weekend for Norwich University, so I got choices. And, you know, the guys that are doing the wrestling thing, they're not the best organizers, so they're doing a wrestling reunion for my high school wrestling team. Just because one guy that's living in New York is back in town. But, I don't know, I haven't really heard concrete details yet, so who knows if that's going to go through or not. But if I'm going to go down there for that, I'm probably going to have a hard time not popping into the boxing thing to talk to Scully face to face. I haven't seen him in a minute. Last time I saw him was at the Connecticut Foxwoods for the Battle of the Badges or something, maybe. No, it was after that. Some other thing. Anyway. That's about it. Let's see if we got any new headlines worth talking about. Yeah, Scully's doing good. I heard something about, since we haven't mentioned Jake Paul this episode, I guess we got to mention Jake Paul at least once. There's been some stories about Rick Ross putting up $10 million to find Jake Paul's next opponent, even though plenty of people are volunteering to be Jake Paul's next opponent. I don't know why you need to find him. $10 million. Yeah, that's what TMZ says. Crazy. Tyson Fury also has been hyping up his comeback now because he wants to fight Usyk. People thought he would only come back to fight Joshua, but apparently now he was very disrespectful. Not only disrespectful, but like disappointed. I should say more than anything else. On the border of being disrespectful, talking about how bad that fight was. It was bad as far as not living up to the hype, but it wasn't horrible. Like, neither guy was out of shape or sloppy or ugly. It was just not as exciting as it should have been. But of course, he came right out there, Fury, and just basically called both of them bums. It was not good for him. But that, he is who he is. He's gonna sell tickets with that kind of stuff and get some hype going, some animosity. And he's just kind of hyping up his own skills by talking like that. He's confident that he could beat either one of them. Anyway, what else we got? Leon Edwards, blah blah blah. Producers of a Michael Bisping documentary hit with copyright lawsuit from UFC. What a bunch of assholes. And you usually consider that free publicity. He works for the UFC too. They do a documentary about him and they're going to hit it with a lawsuit. That's pretty cool. That reminds me of when Strikeforce got sued for using UFC highlights for their fighters. That was settled quickly though. Alright. That's about it. Alright, I guess until next week, we'll work really hard on getting guests because we're going to have very little fights to talk about except upcoming stuff. But, yeah, it was a good week. They blew it all in one night.
Plus, I will let you guys know if I'm going to the fight card next Thursday. There's one in Philly. So, I'll let you know on that one. I'm trying to plan a great weekend next weekend. It's a 3-part surprise birthday gift for myself to myself. And I haven't got tickets for any of the 3 events yet.
Yep.
So I'm really going to be surprised. But possibly fight card on Thursday night, concert on Friday night, and midget wrestling on Saturday night.
Yeah. Midget wrestling?
Dude, that's what you do when you're the tornado.
Are you kidding me?
No, I'm not kidding. I kid about midget wrestling. That's 20 minutes from my house. Now, when one of your friends does something really cool and you can't copy off them?
Yeah.
But you can at least do something for, like, so my friend of mine, and I've known him since college, he only lives like 15 minutes from me. He went to like a Dover Speedway not that long ago. It was kind of like a dedication to his father. His father was a firefighter that had, was considered killed in action. So he goes to this thing, and they had midget wrestling after the show. So he gets this picture with all these midget wrestlers, and someone goes to him and goes, "Is that going to be your Christmas card photo this year?" He's like, "Yes." Well, obviously I can't do that, but I still can get pictures with them, put in my annual calendar.
Cool. Well, you'll have to do a Fight News Unlimited report about the midget wrestling.
know I will.
Because we have nothing else to cover this week.
It's going to be great.
Maybe it'll give me a chance to actually publish shit on Fight News Unlimited this week, because there's nothing coming in. Alright, well, till next week. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good one.
All right. Well, you gentlemen have a fine weekend. I've asked how much you the fights. Enjoy the no fights.
Yeah. Well,
One fight.
we need to get back to a normal life. Man,
Yeah.
There's never been a weekend like that.
Oh, man.
Yeah, no,
All right, guys.
True.
Over for now.
All right. See you later.